As you all know, I have the Amber Empire, my Camponotus Castaneus colony, but what you don't know is that I've been secretly keeping 3 Camponotus Castaneus queens I caught a couple of months ago, on June 5th to be exact, and after spending the past 2 months in my closet, they finally have workers. Or nanitics. So today, I'm going to introduce you to all 3 colonies, show you how they have progressed over the past couple of months, and even feed them for the very first time. If you end up enjoying today's video, please like and subscribe, and stick around to the end, because I have a couple of very important decisions that you guys can help me make. The first time I checked in on the queens was on June 16th, where I was happy to see Queen 3, Queen 4, and Queen 5 all laid eggs. The reason they are Queen 3, 4, or 5, and not 1, 2, 3, is because of the 2 queens you see here now. These girls were caught around the same time, but they both must have failed to mate as they both ended up being infertile unfortunately. Therefore, they never laid any eggs. But I was glad to see all 3 of our surviving queens had begun the difficult founding process. Next time I checked on them was June 25th. They still had what appeared to be just eggs. Could have been very early instar larvae, but mostly eggs nonetheless. I would then check on them again a few days later on June 28th, where it would be the same story. It's not a lot of time had passed. The next time I would check was July 5th. This was when the first larva had appeared in each test tube. Queen 4 had become the front runner now, with the biggest larva of the 3. But they were still pretty small and early in development. I was still so happy to see this though. My only colony up to this point was the Amber Empire, which were bought from a US-based store called myrmecology. But I caught these girls myself, so I get to observe the whole founding process with you guys. Man, am I lucky. Next time I checked would be July 12th, and wow. Look at the size of the larvae that Queen 3 and Queen 4 have. They are starting to balloon, and wouldn't be surprised if cocoons would appear within the next couple of checks. This whole experience was so exciting. I checked again a week later on July 19th, and boom, cocoons have appeared. Multiple. And look at this. If you look closely on Queen 3's batch of brood, she is a larva actively spinning a 4th cocoon. So cool to see. Queen 4 was still in the lead with 4 fully spun cocoons, and Queen 5 not far behind. It was around now that it had dawned on me, I can only keep one of these 3 colonies permanently due to space constraints. But that could wait for later. For now, let's move on to next week's check. July 26th, and wow, even more cocoons. All 3 queens were doing so well, and I was proud to see all of them manage to get to the cocoon stage. I can't wait to see what their workers will look like. August 2nd. Some of the cocoons have darkened and look almost ready to eclose. Queen 4 and Queen 5 are already starting to raise more larvae for the workers to take care of once they eclose from the cocoons. And then finally on August 9th, it happened. I looked into their test tubes to see this. Boom. Nanitics, also known as a queen's first generation of workers, had been born. Queen 3 had 1 nanitic. She seemed to move pretty comfortably, so she must have eclosed a little while before the check-in. Looking at Queen 4's test tube and wow, look at that. One of them looks more comfortable while the other 2 looks more pale and like callows. Callows are the stage a worker is in for the first 24 to 48 hours of its life after eclosing, where its soft body and has to wait for its exoskeleton to harden for it to move properly. They have to take this time to get used to their new appendages and are cared for by the queen and other colony members. Very cool stuff. Finally, looking into Queen 5's test tube, I saw this. 2 nanitics. Her cocoons look more rough for some reason. Couldn't figure out why, but glad to see she also made it to her first workers. These queens are fully claustral, meaning they haven't needed to leave the nest or forage since founding. Instead, they survived by using their own stored reserves from before their nuptial flights to raise their first generation of workers. That means the queens haven't eaten in over 2 months, and these workers have never had a meal outside of what their mother provided from her reserves. So let's see what happens when we finally give them some food. I'm going to feed them some protein jellies I bought from Aesthetic Ants. The Ember Empire seems to love these, so hopefully they will too. And here we go. Queen 3 and her worker immediately dug in. Look at them go. So did Queen 4. Her workers were a little more timid, but the queen was chowing down on the jelly. She must have been real tired from not eating the last couple of months. Queen 5 was curious, but ultimately didn't try it. Her and her workers were too timid. I ended up putting them away before ever seeing them actually try the protein jelly, but hopefully they eventually tried it. But if the queen still has some reserves left then, it's possible they rejected it as they just aren't ready yet. Back to Colony 3. Her worker was now chowing down for her while she rested. This is how it's going to go from now on, Queen 3. Get used to this luxury life. You just sit there and your daughters will bring the food right to you. Queen 4 was still digging in for her colony. Looks like her workers were more timid like Colony 5. At least her workers were tending to brood and stuff while she feasted. But eventually, a worker from Colony 4 began to help, and the queen started to rest. I left them like this for a couple of days with the protein jelly, before removing it and giving them a superworm segment. Let's see how they react to their first protein feeding. The workers themselves don't need protein to grow like we do for our muscles. Once they've reached adulthood, they're done growing. But the larvae absolutely do. So insect protein is going to be especially important as these colonies begin raising their second generation of workers. The colonies will benefit greatly from insect protein. So let's see how the colonies react to their first insect protein feeding. After putting the protein in, all 3 colonies begin to inspect the superworm piece. The workers have never seen insect pieces or tasted it before, so they are cautious and timid. Queen 5 is the first to taste it. She starts to devour the worm piece. The protein is important for the queen as well, since the eggs she lays require a lot of protein, so the queen needs just as much protein as the larva every feeding. Queen 3 is the next to start feeding. Look at her as she chows down. Queen 5 then does something cool. She rips pieces of cotton and puts it over the superworm piece after 5 minutes of feeding. This could be her signifying to me she is done with the piece, or she could also just be storing it for later. One worker from Colony 3 begins to help her queen feast, and is the only worker from this feeding cycle who ended up helping her queen eat and break down protein. And I'm glad I was able to share that with all of you. This concludes the beginning chapter of these new carpenter ant colonies. I have high hopes for my colony and some pretty cool stuff planned for the future with the colony I keep. Speaking of that, I only have enough resources to keep one of these colonies. I plan to rehome or sell the other two to responsible keepers in Maryland. But that leads us to the questions I want you to answer in the comments below. First one is, which colony do you think we should keep here on this channel? And the other question for you guys is, what do you think we should name the colony we keep? And what should we name the queen of the colony we keep? I can't wait to hear from all of you in the comments. Thank you all for watching. Until the next ant story. Goodbye.